the Cash Flow Code. And my guest today is Dr. Simone Wright Hemmer. She's a first generation college person, so she decided to overachieve and not just get a college degree, but she has a PhD, which is why she has the doctor. And she's in the world of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And a woman of color in that industry is really unusual. In fact, women are unusual. So we're going to talk about education, what education can do for you, why you need to pay attention to this. And as business owners who may not have a college degree, you're going to want to listen to this, not because you need to get a college degree, but maybe your business might need someone with a college degree at some point. So instead of me yammering on, which I'm doing too much of right now, let's bring Simone on and start the conversation. Hey, Simone, how are you today?
I am good. How are yours?
I am doing great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's talk about this. This is really interesting is that um, a lot of folks that listen to this podcast don't have a college degree,
Mhm.
or they don't have a college degree from a fancy university. But they still need to learn stuff. So, what would your recommendation be for those people?
Um, so I have two recommendations. The first recommendation is that you want to find experts that know whatever you're trying to learn. And the reason being is you don't understand or may not understand completely where to get the good resources or how to vet them because you don't have that expertise yet. And so, just by following experts, whether they're at a university or they're really dominant in the industry, following them and then noting the type of resources that they're using or they're bringing up in conversations. And then the second piece to that is just consider looking on a university website. A lot of times they already have a roadmap for various skills and industries built for you. They may not necessarily give you the resource, but the roadmap of key concepts that you need to learn.
A lot of universities have what I refer to as peer-to-peer groups, or others might appear to as mastermind groups, where a group of business owners works with the faculty on a semi-regular basis or monthly basis. A faculty member will come in, run a meeting, and it's a great way, at least in my experience, for business owners to learn stuff. Do you have anything to add to that? I would bet you do.
Absolutely. So, depending on the institution, there are various ways they may have brung in other people from industry and try to collaborate with local environments. So if you look at community colleges, that is by definition what they are supposed to do, is to bring together various members in the community, whether that's for an official course, a certification, or maybe it's just an opportunity to learn for a 2-day event. Um, Higher institutions such as universities have similar things, but usually it's more isolated at the department level, not necessarily at the high university level.
So if you go to, I mean, that's a really good point. So we don't talk about community colleges enough. When people think about college, they tend to think about four-year schools. But
Mhm.
the truth is, community colleges are really kind of an interesting animal in the fact that they're a quasi academic institution and a quasi trade program at the same time. I mean, and this is really important. I think there are a bunch of colleges in their community colleges. They're not four-year schools that teach people things like how to become an aircraft maintenance person and get certified for that because it's a certification, or
Mhm.
how to use NC tools, which are now becoming cost effective for smaller businesses, not just for the big ones. So, you as a business owner, what would you recommend they do when it comes to the community colleges in their area?
Um, as a business owner, honestly, if you need a skill or you need one of your employees to pick up a skill, the first place I would look, which is probably going to be the cheapest way to get started and still give you that leverage, is a community college. Reach out to your local community colleges and see if they teach a course on that skill.
And
And
if what would you recommend you do if they don't?
and if they don't, then I would take it up a one tier. So Even though they may not teach it, I would still reach out to the admissions office and still request it. If they get enough people requesting this type of information, or join the external advisory board for that community college, and you can influence the courses that are taught. Um, Either way, reaching out to the community college and letting them know that this is a skill that's needed, after so many people, they will take it seriously and actually go find someone to come teach it.
And another thing you can do is you can actually just pick up the phone, call the president of the college, and ask him to have a meeting. I mean, typically, community colleges are not, there are community colleges with 20,000 students, but most of them have a couple of thousand students, if that.
Mhm.
And in my experience, the presidents of these community colleges are very, very, very accessible. I mean, if you go to a 4-year school with, a graduate program, the job of the university president is to raise money. If you go to a community college, the job of the university president or the college president is not to raise money because they don't do that. I mean, sometimes they do, but it's not a major piece of what they do. Their major piece is how do they figure out how to serve the community that they're in?
And I think some people forget that I don't think there's enough detail that goes behind the community piece of a community college. They hear the word community, but it kind of gets diluted after they hear college. It's
Right.
like people drop it mentally.
Yeah. Well, it's, at least in my experience, community college presidents are really, really anxious to talk to people in the community for what they need because it's their job. I mean, they have a huge menu of what they could teach,
Mhm.
and then there's what they should teach. And that requires local businesses to sit there and say, here are the skill sets where we're missing and we can't get them. For example, at least in Vermont, getting licensed electricians is a major challenge for a whole bunch of companies. Now, you're not going to use a community college to get a 2-year degree, but you will get a certificate and you'll be licensed, or you'll at least be an apprentice so you can be on the way to being licensed. These are really good things that community colleges need to do.
Mhm.
That makes sense to you?
That I totally agree. Um, the struggle I've had is getting companies to buy into attending these events and voicing their concerns. If the companies don't voice the concern and the need for certain skills, colleges may be left to make assumptions about industries and skills that are needed that they may not be actively involved in. And so the perception um, may not be accurate.
Yeah, I have found this to be true in almost everything. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of what I call customer advisory boards. In the computer world, it's called user groups. I always use the term customer advisory board because I like it better. But I have found, and this was especially true when I had my vending company of food service, I demanded our software company put together a user group. And the reason was their engineers kept designing software that was useless for us in the field. And I finally went to the owners of the company and said, you know something, you're wasting your time and you're wasting my time trying to sell me stuff that's not useful. Why don't we get 15 of our really good users together and tell you what to develop?
Yeah. Um,
When we did that, their software became much, much more usable and useful.
Very much true. Uh, a good example of this is the Kellogg company. Um, Kellogg is heavily attached to the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern University. And the key part to that is if you look at their leadership, their management, and most of the people on their board, they're heavily connected to that school. That's because when Kellogg needs something changed or done or to learn something new, they go to the school and tell them to change it. So you'll also see that Kellogg is one of the largest companies in the world, well known for their mergers and acquisitions. Kellogg School of Business And Northwestern is one of the four institutions in the United States that teach mergers and acquisitions.
There's only four schools that teach that.
Correct.
So I have a question for that because this is curious to me. Is that the research shows that 80% of acquisitions are non-accretive. So are Kellogg's acquisitions accretive, or are they like the other rest of the industry and 80% don't work very well?
Um, I'm not sure because I can't guarantee that the list that they post online is comprehensive.
Yeah.
Um, but of the list that they post, they're doing pretty well.
Well, it seems to be a successful company. You can also say the same thing with PepsiCo about Wharton. And if you want to be a product manager for PepsiCo and you don't come from Wharton, you don't have a chance. And, again, they have a very tight uh, rule. And I'm not sure that actually serves PepsiCo very well by how they do that, but be that as it may, it's that way. Then we have companies like Costco, which essentially they grow all their talent internally.
Yep.
They have nobody in senior management from a name brand university. All their people come from most of their senior management came from San Diego State, which is it's a good college, but it's not Berkeley. And so it's they've built a great company by training people inside with skills they need. So can you talk about that a little bit, the difference between, say, a Kellogg and a Costco?
Yeah, so what tends to happen is the trend that I've seen of various companies is that they will actually start off with the internal training program. But when that gets out of hand or it's not cost effective anymore, they will shift it over to a university. So that's what Kellogg did, that's what GM did, um, that's what Oracle did. Oracle, the software company, then turned around and pushed everything off and created Oracle University. And this is the trend. At some point, it becomes not cost effective to do it internally and the ROI isn't there. So let's shift it to a university. Give them all of their training program. That way the students are paying for their own training. The company's not doing it anymore, but they're overseeing what's taught in the program. And then that's their first go-to to pick talent.
For if Oracle needs training, they expect their employees to pay for their own training.
Not necessarily. So what Oracle did is they created Oracle University when they realized that a lot of their new hires were not ready to do what they needed. And so what they did is they then sent them to their training program called Oracle University, and you go depending on your career and get certain classes taken. But it's not an official university. That's why I'm using air quotes.
Okay, cool. So, what is the four pillars of college that can accelerate someone's career?
Yeah. So the four pillars of college are the first one is experts. So you're not paying for knowledge, you're paying for access. And the first one gives you access to an expert, which will accelerate your learning. Take math, for instance. If you are learning calculus, a lot of times your math teacher will make you white out every single step. And that's because so they can identify which step you went wrong and tell you how to correct it. If you try to do this on your own, it'll just take too long. Um, the
What if
second one,
what if you say something like the Khan Academy for that?
the same thing with Khan Academy. Khan Academy can only give you so much granular feedback, and even then, it's not individualized. So Khan Academy works really, really well for things that are extremely straightforward, but when you get alternative ways to do certain things that, depending on somebody's personality, one way will sync better with them than the other, it now becomes a little bit more difficult to do this online because I don't have time to do a personality test to figure out which one of these is going to work better for you and then present that one. But a teacher can do that in real time on the fly.
Okay, cool. Pillar two.
And HPS is a great example of this.
Yeah. What is HPS, first of all, because no one's going to know.
HPS is Heroic Public Speaking. It has actually just changed their name to Heroic. Um, at the end of that training, they sometimes have this video portion where you will do a portion of your video live in front of an audience, and that real-time feedback and adjustment works well versus waiting 3, 4 months to get that feedback and then changing is a
Mm,
little bit more difficult.
yeah. Okay. What's the second pillar?
The second pillar is going to be resources. So a lot of people, when they go to college, are not really sure of everything that's available to them for resources. College is one of the few institutions that get free or reduced resources. Take Microsoft, for example. Microsoft will give you free Windows and Office 365 as long as you have a .edu email, which means that you're a college student. Um, Amazon will give you 6 months free Amazon Prime and 50% off as a student. Verizon gives discounts. Lots and lots of companies give discounts just by having a .edu email. They're not going to the institution and saying, give me a list of your students. They're just saying, do you have a .edu, which means you are associated with a higher education institution.
Cool. How about the third one?
The third one is network. So this one's near and dear to my heart. When I decided I wanted to be an engineer, I did not have anybody in my family or my network that was an engineer. So I didn't have anybody who could offer me an opportunity to learn about engineering, and I didn't have anybody who could teach me um, and be my mentor. So I knew that I had to go to college to get access to a network where someone could do that for me. And the loyalty that people have to their college and their university is ungodly. When they realize that me and you went to the same school, they prioritize helping you because you have that shared experience.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. Even at the huge schools. I mean, I went to Boston University, and which is went from being big to huge. And I always am curious about why someone went to BU or what they studied and what they got out of it and all that kind of good stuff. And I'm not the biggest person that says, "Well, gee, I think I want to go talk to you about college." But if they're from BU, then I tend to do that. So, what's the fourth one?
And the fourth one is a cohort. So a lot of people don't realize this, but in our public K through 12 education system, we actually operate in cohorts. So if you stayed in the same community, you may have seen that you took classes with the same people from the moment you started school to the moment you graduated. That is called a cohort. And within that, you may find an even smaller cohort of niche people who like just what you like. And you guys may move together through your education. When you have somebody who you have shared values, beliefs, and goals, and you guys are doing things together, that helps when times of difficulty, whether that may be family stress or just not understanding the material. A lot of times when you're in class, the professor has 90 plus students. They can't really address the issues of all 90. It doesn't scale very well. So in those cases, you lean on your cohort first. And I found that 9 times out of 10, somebody in my cohort understands the subject that I'm struggling with, and I usually don't have to go to the professor for that.
So, if you, or a thought just occurred to me, if I own a blue collar business or I'm in a blue collar business, probably not going to go back to college and get a college degree, but there are probably things that I want to learn along the way
Mhm.
where you could apply all four of these things, especially if you go and you say, I say, for example, one of Michael Port's, who's the founder of Heroics Public Speaking, his book, Yourself Solid, which I consider the best marketing method out there. And you say, okay, I want to improve my marketing because enough people are not finding me in the world. So I might decide to go and enroll in a Book Yourself Solid program and work with them. And from that, we'll grow a group of peers who are going through that program with me.
Yep,
And those peers, I guess I would call a cohort. So
correct.
you're getting access to the expert, which are the people teaching the course. You've got a network that you're doing so you can do that. You've got Access, you got access to the experts, you got networking, you've got a cohort of people that you can call who are peers of yours along the way, and you're not going to spend $40,000 to get that. You'll spend a few $1,000s to do that. That's where masterminds come in.
Yep.
That's where peer-to-peer groups come in. It's the reason Young Presidents Organization got started. It's the reason Vistage exists today. So there's lots and lots of ways for people who are not college bound to get the same benefits you would get from college, but by taking one class or
Mhm.
one course or something that's taught privately by an expert in a particular area. It could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be public speaking. It could, there's a zillion of them out there.
Yeah.
So,
And this is where college has a unique spin. So a lot of these college institutions have networks that are centuries long, and their cohort piece is unique because it usually implies we're in a dormitory together. So we're together all the time. My cohort isn't part-time or temporary. It's we're together for a few years. And that bond ends up being something that is very difficult to break. Even years after you've left, you're still best friends with the person you met in college. Um, those that's the unique aspect, is how long their network has been intact, and the in-person piece and actually living together for a few years.
yeah, I wonder about this in that, I wonder about this in that um, it's true at the name brands, like the Harvards. Yeah, most people know what the Harvard has a strong attachment. People I know at BU, went to BU, not so much. Even though you may have lived in the dorm, you may have been in the dorm. It's really a different setup. I mean, the Princetons, the Harvards, the Browns, the way that their colleges are set up for cohorts are really set up for that versus the Ohio States or the BUs of the world are not. So I
Hmm.
think I think like if you go to a small school, you go to a Bentley or a Babson, there's probably a better chance for that to happen than if you go to Ohio State or Berkeley.
Yeah. And this is in it goes back to how the institution does its business model.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, they could do whatever they want, but what I've seen is the cohort method works. Military does it as well. When you go
Military
to
is
training,
unbelievable at that.
you
Unbelievable.
you go with your cohort. They make
Yeah.
they basically make you struggle, but like together.
Well, that always helps, by the way.
Hmm.
I remember going through some New Age seminars in the early 80s, and I'm still friends with people I went through that struggle with. So that having a little bit of challenge along the way helps. Hey, Simone, unfortunately, we're out of time, and I'm going to bet that somebody listening or some people listening might want to find more about you. So, how would they go about doing that?
Absolutely. You could go to simonespeaks.com and send me a message, or you could email me directly at Simone, Cimone, at heysimone.com.
Oh, and I got one thing I'd like you to do. I've asked you to do this for 8.5, going on 9 years now, which is to go to wherever you're listening to this podcast. And please give us an honest rating review. If you love us, you give us 5 stars, maybe 4 stars. If you don't love us that much, if you hate us, you give us 1 star. I sit in the corner and cry, turn to a little puddle, but I jump back up again and start over. So if you would do that, I would really, really appreciate it. It's how people find the podcast. So giving us an honest rating review is really important. So this is Josh Patrick with Simone Wright Hemore. We're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.